One. Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambermont Weber, and we have the great privilege today, coming to us from Tokyo, Japan, Greg Sullivan, the Executive Director of JCETI.org. Welcome, Greg.
Hi, Alfred. Good to be with you. And I'm so happy to be on this interview today. And it was amazing to meet you in person finally at the end of last year.
I was about to say that the last time and the first time that we met each other was here in Vancouver. You're now in Japan. I greatly enjoyed all of my visits there. The last time I was in Japan, I mentioned to you, for that week, I went to meet a Japanese man who was allegedly meeting with extraterrestrial spacecraft pilots. And during the week that I was in Japan, the Japanese parliament, the Diet, had a public debate on the protocols for meeting extraterrestrials. What would Japan do when it met extraterrestrials? Yeah. So I thought that was quite a synchronicity, as it were.
That's an amazing honor. That's not something that happens every day in the Diet, for sure. So that was definitely time with your visit.
Well,
I'd love to hear more about that next time. We didn't finish that portion of our conversation, but that's not many people can say that.
Now, today, however, is March 16th, 2020. And of course, here it's 24/7 5G-CoronaVirus. Here in Canada, the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, whose wife Sophie has just tested positive for the coronavirus, so he's in isolation.
Right. Yeah.
Has just shut down the borders of Canada, which is the second largest landmass in the world after Russia, to all non-Canadians, except U.S. citizens, of course, or
us friendly neighbors.
I guess Canadian wannabes. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm going to immigrate myself before it's too long.
So anyway,
I just canceled a trip to America in 2 weeks myself. So yeah, I know how it goes.
Yeah. So today we're having a special program on the coronavirus, which, as we were speaking, has ancient roots. That is, just a couple of days ago, I posted on my Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn accounts. I mean, all we can do in this self-isolation is kind of reach out through social media. That Nostradamus in 1555 wrote a quatrain and may have written many more quatrains on the coronavirus. And he called it, it came to the land of the seven hills, of course, which is Italy, which is, it's started in China. He had a name for China and then went to the land of the seven hills, Italy. So it looks like whoever's directing the false flag of the coronavirus, they have Nostradamus' quatrain up on the wall. I mean, I'm just looking at it that way.
That is
now,
deep. That's amazing.
You and I had exchanged articles on the possible electromagnetic or scalar, i.e. 5G, 60 gigahertz electromagnetic frequency interacting with the coronavirus. The coronavirus has had many forms, and its current forms is the COVID-19. And, but you can really bring to us a window to your world in Japan and share with us here in North America and to our audience on Exopolitics TV, which is actually worldwide, what is happening there in Japan. So I'm really going to turn the talking stick over to you to bring us up to date to what is happening in Japan as the coronavirus phenomenon or meme or pandemic or epidemic. I mean, I actually have a certificate from the Harvard School of Public Health, and I'm glad that I specialized in false flags starting in almost after the Kennedy assassination, because this is the strangest cross between an epidemic, pandemic, and a false flag. I mean, it's just like, whoa. Over to you.
Cheers, Alfred. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we've been enjoying your articles and real-time updates, and it's definitely so many pieces that if it weren't for these the ability to share in real time, we would maybe miss or not put the puzzle pieces together. But yeah, it's true. We covered so much in our talk last year and in person. And just a quick background: I'm originally a sound engineer, and I graduated from Music Technology Department of NYU in 1999. So kind of like the world of the unseen for me started with the frequency spectrum, of sound. And so in my journey here through sort of ET contact, exopolitics, disclosure, and whatnot, I've become really sensitive to energies. And of course, one of the issues that was in one of our exchanges this last week included the TI phenomenon. So there's all these pieces that people have been experiencing across the spectrum leading up to this, but now all the pieces seem to be into play, and it's sort of an orchestrated chaos. If I think everyone would agree. But just a quick, I wanted to compare. There's not a lot of information from Japan on as it is in real time. I think in the English media, and I wanted to contrast it starkly to how different it is from China. First off, everyone has an impression that Japan is super high tech, and of course they have the best electronics shops in the world, and they have such a meticulous electronics culture. But as far as the Wi-Fi goes, it's actually quite behind the times. So there are a lot of cell tower repeater towers, of course, and you could have the unfortunate luck of moving into an apartment building that has a repeater right on top of it. So the apartment I'm in now here in Tokyo, we moved here in May of last year, and it was the first time in my life that I didn't see the place before I moved in. So thank goodness our building doesn't have a tower on it. But I've been interested in the effects of EMF and of course for a long time. And but the Wi-Fi rollout here has been very slow. So I would travel around doing lectures and events, and unless you were in something like a major station or Narita Airport, there's only kind of like paid Wi-Fi services. So going into that's they've gone through, of course, 2G, 3G, 4G now. But Wi-Fi itself, people have been reliant on pocket Wi-Fi devices and also tethering off their 4G devices. But we're just about to hit the first 5G rollout is literally in about 10 days, in about on the 27th, so later this month. And the major company, one of the three major companies called SoftBank, is about to roll that out. So they're quickly catching up to the times. And of course, that dovetails with our 2020 Tokyo Olympics. So as far as with the pandemic effect, the biggest shock to people was when Prime Minister Abe Shinzo declared this, even before he declared, he has not declared a national state of emergency yet, but he did shut all the schools down. So the elementary school and junior high school students and we're just heading into the end of their school year, which is at the end of this month. So it wasn't horrible timing to do that, but so the first shock to the system was having all of the kids at home. And then of course there's the corporate culture here is world renowned, and there's been a big huge shift in with all these people being asked to telework and work from home. So those are really big social changes, social effects that are hitting here. there are of course positive elements to that too. But the thing you notice on the news, although they are doing the fear mongering thing with the virus itself, the actual government stance has been very different from the rest of the world because of one thing, is that they don't want the Olympics canceled. So just in the last week, we've seen Trump giving his advice that they should probably postpone until 2021, and then the IOC, International Olympic Council, is going to defer to the WHO on this. So it's getting every day that the chances that they're not going to be able to use this brand new Olympic stadium they just finished and everything else are increasing dramatically. The funny thing is that I've been at this in an official status for about 10 years here in Japan, and ever since the beginning, when I released my first book, people were implying, around 2020, 2013, when the Olympics were announced here, everyone was implying, a lot of people were implying that, are they going to be able to do it? I wonder if the Olympics are actually going to happen. There was a lot of Nostradamus type predictions happening about this Tokyo Olympics. And in the research that's come out around the coronavirus explosion here, is the fact that the classic Japanese anime film Akira has a certain scene in it that is very formidable and very it's a premonition. It's a prediction into the future, where it says 147 or whatever it was days remaining to the Olympics in Tokyo, and the Olympics of course get canceled. They're not going to happen because there's a bit of an Armageddon in the film. So that was foreshadowing what's actually literally about to happen now. We see the timer about to stop at 140 some days potentially to the Olympics. So anyway, the government here has been really trying to play it low key. They the Japanese have they're masters at the poker face, as you know. So they're trying to play it. They're really trying to play it down. But the big thing we had here, of course, is the Diamond Princess. And because we are an island nation, we were kind of protected from a lot of the domestic spread of it until the Diamond Princess cruise ship that was docked at Yokohama. That was sort of one of the main entry points of it. So over here, that's quite a stark difference from Wuhan, which was the first place to have the 5G rollout. And then I also sent you a link this morning where we see that in Wuhan there was the Event 201 pandemic simulation that occurred at the same time, on the same day as the 2019 Military World Games. So again, all these simulations and coincidences with the false flag coming on top of piggybacking on top of a quote unquote simulation or a training, in that regard. So yeah, and then finally, the other big fear factor thing here is that people, of course, are very sensitive to the fact that it was the 9th anniversary of 3/11, and which is the Fukushima disaster, and all of the tritium infused water that they're releasing or about to release into the ocean, and they keep the trigger point here for the Japanese is the fact that you might have heard that the large Tokyo earthquake is overdue by 30 to 50 years, and so they've just started, as of February, they've just started to put that propaganda back out there. So they kind of put the primer for the coronavirus pandemic was, what about that Tokyo direct hit earthquake? They're expecting a 7 to a 9 right in the city. If you look at the history of the Kanto area here, the epicenters of the major earthquakes have been all around, even one right in my neighborhood here, literally, all over the general Tokyo metropolitan area. But the gap between the last one and now is the largest by far, the longest by far. So it's sort of this seems like a very calculated thing. And even as recently as last weekend, they had specials about that. So as if the virus wasn't enough, they keep kind of scratching this itch of, now they have these CGI programs where they simulate the stampedes of people that'll happen, and just this gruesome details about what's going to happen when the giant earthquake hits. So it's sort of like that, mass consciousness. So I look at this as a spiritual challenge, and we'll cover those points later, of course. But we're really being our center is really being tested here with these survival fears. The earthquake and the um, natural disaster type of mind control or scalar programming is very similar to the pandemic / viral kind of mental or mind control attack, psyop attack, because it's that root chakra survival consciousness and the kind of animal nature of humans, where our logic shuts off and we go into survival mode. So that's where the buying out. I was surprised that the buyouts happened so quickly in the West too. That of course we were quickly without tissues and toilet paper here, but I was very surprised how quickly that spread over to the West as well. So yeah, that's the primer. So at the moment, it's not quite full-on emergency here. People are definitely avoiding public places, and international transportation is really, really dropped off to nearly zero. Narita and Tokyo Haneda International Airport are quite empty at the moment. And then, of course, with the companies forcing employees to work from home, and then places like the public baths and a lot of gathering places, and of course Tokyo Disney and those kind of theme parks are closed as well. So tourism, we were expecting one of the biggest surges in tourism since the 60s, that the original Tokyo Olympics, and then we have this huge, the tides have pulled back. So the last point is that the infrastructure of Tokyo, for many who don't know, was the city highway, the Shitoko, the beautiful weaving kind of Blade Runner type city highway. All these, many of the train lines and subway lines were all built during the 60s Olympics, and they're falling apart. So a giant earthquake would have extremely devastating effects in the city here. Of course, they've been renewing all those, a lot of the bridges and watching the rusting and erosion, but a direct hit would be just catastrophic in the world's largest city of Tokyo here. Yeah. So yeah, that's the basics.
Right, right. You mentioned the WHO, the World Health Organization, and that Japan is now kind of officially or semi-officially putting the authority to say, well, it should go forward, it should not go forward, as far as the 2020 Olympics in the hands of the World Health Organization. Is that correct? Or?
Yes, yes, that's
yeah.
the case,
So
yeah.
it's like the World Health Organization is suddenly becoming the world government in a certain way, taking on a global authority that really has never existed at that level, and
Right.
that a month ago would have been thought unthinkable,
Yeah.
except for certain votes of the United Nations Security Council on certain world issues, right?
It is scary how much control, how much power consolidation they were able to do with a deferral like that, and the fact that no one has raised an eyebrow is also very suspicious. I mean, even in the photos of these, the G7 had a telephone video conference last night apparently, but you can tell that Prime Minister Abe, he is trying to hold back his frustration. You can tell with his photos, but of course, with some people calling Japan the 51st state, there's not a lot that they can really say against, especially what kind of America is. We go hand in hand, the U.S. and Japan. Where America goes, Japan goes in that regard. So Trump, they were on the news here was, of course, Trump's recommendation to have them postponed at least a year. Yeah, so it's a mess. But uh, the scary thing is that this, like, it's all been so scripted and this kind of power play, the power grab. I think, of course, this pandemic thing is with the WHO, but if it was another angle, it would have been another agency. So it's it's in our hands about what we're going to do about this, and how we're going to react. How can we react?
Right, right. But just to go back to the Asian theater a second, and I may be wrong, but the reports out of South Korea are that the curve has been flattened and they've gotten over the worst, and they really have mitigated that virus.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is that that's the situation in China also. Isn't that correct?
Yes, true. Very true. Yes.
Now, is that the situation in Japan as well?
Very key point. Yeah, then that's of course the thing I should we should also remember is that essentially the Asian communities are very cleanly consciousness, especially the Japanese being by far the most type A about that. So the transfer of the disease itself amongst the citizens, especially in Japan, has been really they're very considerate of each other. So and very, very cleanliness conscious, of course. So that on the news was here as well, where they've been deliberately refusing to mention the recoveries. So that comes in as an after point, where they show this graph of people coming in and out of the hospitals. The northern island of Hokkaido here has been really badly hit. So there was a graph on the news, and then the other caster but it cut in and said, wait a minute, so if there's this number of beds and the entry to the hospital has gone up so high, how can they not be overflowing? And it's like, there have been recoveries, of course, they just brushed that under the carpet. So unless this guy had asked about that specifically, they weren't going to mention it. So that's the lopsided reporting is, of course, the same here, where and they don't even mention the symptoms, where they really aren't focusing on what the symptoms are and how it's different from a regular cold. It's just trying to it also is trying to pit us against each other with this kind of like us and them mindset, and every man for himself. That's the part of the theme of this survival consciousness that they want us to drop into, to revert to. But yeah, I think the recovery rate, I think it's going to pass. I get the feeling it's going to pass. They're not going to be able to use it. They're trying to pump all this gasoline into the fire, but I feel it already deflating. And even just yesterday, after this weekend, I felt a little bit more of a positive tone just being out and about. And it's people are tired. People are tired of the propaganda. It's just exhausting. So people want to have a regular life once again. So they are, I think the fact that the recoveries are
really Asia has gone through the curve, and now the curve's hitting Europe and North America.
Right.
Basically, is that what's going on?
Yeah. We've kind of processed it, and that cruise ship is gone, and China is, and Korea. They went through the most extreme of it, of course. But yeah, it seems like they've peaked out. They've mostly already peaked out.
Yeah. And I saw this analysis. You may have seen it as well, that the Princess cruise ship, the one with the outbreak, was the only cruise ship that was fitted out with advanced satellite 5G and high-level electronics.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so you had the interaction of the electromagnetic frequencies and whatever the underlying biology was. And then I saw a very thought-provoking analysis of the 1918 so-called Spanish flu, which apparently was also a Chinese flu.
Hmm.
And that coincided with the worldwide initiation of radio.
Huh, really?
So that apparently, which had to do with the electrification of the atmosphere.
Right.
And so the thought process went that wherever you have this imbalance of there it was the first electrification, which then brought an imbalance in the human aura and in the whatever the biological field is, and that led to the quote Spanish flu, or the 1918 false flag.
Yeah.
Was 50
Very
to
interesting.
100 million deaths exacerbated by aspirin and by the vaccine. You can go to our blog Ebolagate at our blog at exopolitics.com. And now, in this iteration, 100 years later, it's with the 5G, which is a similar initiation of a quantum level of electrification. So anyway, do you have any thoughts on that? Or
That is interesting for sure. Yeah, it's almost like the aura you mentioned, the auric health, and it's almost like our morphogenetic field. We are so adaptable that the virus itself almost could be looked at as like a purge of a detox of the system, the total human system, and in the end, we're going to be able to override these 5G frequencies and mix them with the incoming kind of ascension frequencies. And I basically think that this is also, it's almost like Aikido, anything you have coming at you can always be spun, and you can always kind of dodge that bullet with the love and higher vibrational energy. So we have all this showering galactic energies, all these frequencies that are increasing the vibration of our aura, and that is really ramping up, even just in the last 2 years. That's what we do here full time. This kind of ET contact and ascension work, and a lot of that's shifted mainly into an energetic work as well in the past year or two. And so it's almost like a reaction to, they're trying that last ditch to keep this sort of quote unquote frequency fence around the planet, and we're just poking holes through it. So the frequencies that are available that are interdimensional and 5D and above. Let's go from 5G to 5D, and the 5D and above, and then that is the ultimate kind of harness. That's the ultimate wave to ride. So I think that anything, our bodies can handle anything, and the immune system can be constantly supported by these newer frequencies streaming in. So yeah, it's the subtle energy body is influenced by our physical state and our psychological state, and of course the freer vibration. The more we get pulled down by that lower chakra weight, the harder it is for those higher frequencies to ground in. I always take the frequency element. I give people an example from my world of the engineer or music, where if you walk by a club or a live concert venue, what frequencies are actually reaching you at the street outside through the walls? It's not the high vibration, it's the low bass frequencies, the bass spectrum. So meaning that the bass waves are harder to contain. So as long as we prepare ourselves and make a sort of a vessel of our personal auric field to hold these more subtle energies and to anchor them in, that's the ultimate solution. There's nothing that can affect us at that point. I got training in that, a real boots on the ground training in that, where we mentioned this sort of TI. You could call all those people on the cruise ship, the Diamond Princess, sort of a test group or a TI cluster. It's kind of hard to swallow, hard to fathom how inhumane that is. But I think this is it's a beta test for sure to see what's going to happen when they roll out the global network. And unfortunately, most people are not open receivers yet for the higher HD energies, but they will be very soon. So the primer I got in the ancient Japanese world is before we had any of the EMF or radio was, of course, the key, the chi energy. So and of course, any of these energies can be weaponized or used for positive good and healing. It's the world of Reiki and all that stuff. So um, just the other day, I was at a beautiful place outside of Tokyo here, where the one of the oldest monks and founders of a huge sect of Buddhism called Kukai. He had this sect in the Osaka area called Mikyo, and they did a lot of these mudras and the hand poses, these different kind of mudras and stuff, and they use them as a they also are able to affect other people, and of course their own energy fields at first. You picture someone meditating with a mudra like this, and the different parts of the nervous system that stimulates. But that there's also a component that was used in politics, and of course in tandem with horoscopes and feng shui, fusui, they call it here. And so for someone like me who is kind of disclosing different information and releasing stuff that was kind of taboo here in the past, I would be in a lecture and you'd see someone in the front row doing their jitsu, at me. It's like an energetic attack. And the Western intelligence agencies have studied this. And once in a while, if you look closely enough at an old newsreel on YouTube, you'll see the initiated. It's a secret society. In the West, it became, secret society only type of thing. But you'll see initiated mass media people doing that to control their the interviewee. Anyway, that was my trial by fire, where you would have people shooting. They have astral weapons. They can use like darts and stuff. And I've even had dreams of people like with astral weapons coming at you in a dream state. But so a doctor friend of ours, he's able to do acupuncture with his mind, and he has the air needles. And so it just shows you the power of the astral level, the mental body, when we develop that. So
Sure. Could I just jump in here with a question? When you were speaking and you discerned that there were people that were doing these aggressive martial arts on you and violating your space.
Yes. Big violence.
How exactly did you cope with that? What did you do?
It was a shock at first, for sure. It was in a pretty short period of time. I was really exposed to a lot of different people, and it's sort of like a form of energetic bullying, you might even call it, and it is an energetic martial art as well. You're very correct in saying that. I consulted with other people who were familiar with that kind of energy work, and the first thing of course was I practiced shielding to some degree, but you kind of go to one extreme where it looks like for a short period of time, once you realize that. And that's one of the biggest realizations of my life, I could say, to realize that how interactive our energy bodies are with the mind and everything. But I went into panic mode for a few months, for sure, because I thought I was seeing it everywhere. And then I kind of got more and more neutral, and was more assured in my ability to kind of clear the space and be able to connect to much higher energy. So and then once you see them fail, once you see them not be able to do it to you, that's the ultimate, so it's a spiritual test either which way you walk.
Right. Very, very interesting.
The one, I mean, that's a whole other topic in itself. The one thing the first thing, and I realize this is very prevalent in media and politics as well, is what the most common one of those is actually, what the other thing is sometimes the people aren't even aware. So I was also shown through synchronicity that this ties into what you might call an overshadow phenomenon. Very, very interesting. It's the also another phrase is called superimpositional forces, which is when another entity comes in on top of the person or behind the person and uses their hands or something to come at you. So there was times when I would say, "Hey, stop that," and the person would generally have no idea what they were doing. So the most common one is with an open hand, and it's called jamming. And literally, they just point the hand at you, and you're like, "Whoa!" Your train of thought just gets. It's like they just slide your mind. You forget what you were saying. So I mean that's actually many people have experienced that through kind of interdimensional interference, and astral entities and so-called these. So a lot of light workers in the starseeds, I think, have experienced that in one time or another. But thank goodness, I was able to actually figure out where it was coming from. So anyway, that's kind of getting more into this TI element of things. But did you have anything else about that, Alfred? Sorry.
No, it was just so graphic
Yeah.
to have, here in North America, I've interviewed speakers at conferences who have had directed energy weapons pointed at them by
Yeah.
operatives who are in the audience, and I've experienced having those pointed at me. But those are technological. However,
Yes.
this is more kind of organic, cultural, within the Japanese indigenous culture. And I just wondered how you would cope with that. And yeah, we used to call it in Aikido rondori.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Have you run across that term?
No, what's that?
Well, it would be an exercise that you would do, say, toward the end of the Aikido session, where there would be 5 to 8 or so people in a circle around you, and their idea would be to go after you, and you had to fend off eight or so attackers coming in. And I always found that to be really, really interesting, using the principle of using the attacker's energy against them. And of course, you had people coming at you from the front, the back, the side, and
that's intense,
and all of that. And it just, those principles are what we as the Earth human community are feeling now, I believe, from the community of negative reptilian and lizard souls. We just had a guest, Gary Peter Carlson, who advances the theory that there's a covert system of where negative reptilian and lizard incarnate souls. They have negative, and they incarnate into human bodies. They don't have empathy, and they're in the position of authority, and they're the ones who have actually, designed and implemented these plagues and these coronaviruses and these, directed energy weapons and, targeted individual and depopulation programs. It's kind of the human souls versus these this secret group of negative negative reptilian and lizard souls at the interdimensional level. It's at the soul level.
Yes.
And so that we're kind of playing a rondori in this coronavirus. Let's throw the coronavirus at them, because if you look at it from an epidemiological point of view, I mean, I used to run helped run, administer a fairly large public health clinic with 90,000 patient encounters a year in the lower Rio Grande Valley, and got a certificate from the Harvard School of Public Health, and I know a little bit about that field. And this is a new world order op. This is a psychological op.
Yes, no doubt about
seriously.
it. Yeah.
And its primary focus is economic. Its primary focus is control. It's brainwashing. It's fear inducement. It's scarcity. It's to move us toward the new world order, and it's not love based.
Yeah, not at all.
So people like you and me who are in charge of and whose goals are always are sort of exopolitically directed, that is, in terms of relations with other civilizations that are more evolved and perhaps more ethical. I know that they're bad ETs, but the ones that are reaching out to us and trying to evolve us, that's what we're concerned with at a professional level. I'm sure that the Venusians are very concerned now about what's happening, the good Pleiadians, the Alpha Centaurians, the Sirians, the Regional Galactic Governance Council. It's the law of non-interference that doesn't allow these various galactic governance authorities to intervene and stop these genocidal programs, which are violations of international law, violations of galactic law, and eliminate these reptilian-souled war criminals. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, definitely. That, of course, ties into the overshadow element I was talking about before, and I've definitely encountered those type of energies with presidents of publishers and stuff, and the people in these high. Of course, the spiritual community here is very active, so you'll run into those type of entities and beings in the upper echelons of that, where they can see, they're able to read your frequency spectrum and know that you're not on their side, and so they either sideline you or shut you down. So definitely experience that. Or first they'll try to co-opt you. That was the first one. So within the first 2 years of our project here, I was approached by I was kind of had these sort of astral agents or people that had those elements in their soul or whatever you want to call them, kind of roll up and really aggressively try and steer the direction of our project, i.e. me, in a certain direction. So it took a lot of willpower and definitely, so again, constantly building up that energy body. And I think the huge point we should again speak about here is that all these, there is the law of non-intervention is kind of slowly dissipating. I think we've crossed a couple of major thresholds since 2017. And basically we're getting down into the actual energy and light body repair with these beings. So that's the essence of the sessions I do. And we've had a good couple hundred people come through already in the last few years, 2 years rather. And it's really the 5G, whether it's 5G, the media control, the media control is hitting us here in the brain level, our five senses, our eyes and our brain. But with these elements that we're talking about with the jitsu and the aikido, the randori you're mentioning, they're grabbing us below the belt. They've got us down where we're not even looking in the right place. So it's a full body attack. So we need to be full body upgraded. So what we've moved from just plain ET contact events outside to actually, we've got people on a bed in a session room, and the guides come in and And it's about first thing, it's about pulling out all the things that could resonate with these kind of energies. We have our fear in our cellular memory, we have traumas, we have different kinds of implant structures, the DNA manipulation that's occurred, and they go in and go to town. These they're ET medical teams. The closest thing you might say is Paralendria out in Virginia had this program called MAP, Medical Assistance Program, that worked a lot with the nature realm, nature spirits, and those, and they called it the Great White Brotherhood, I believe. But we're more in the kind of galactic guardian element, where we've got the Arcturian healers coming in, and these Orion doctors from Orion, and really seeding the higher dimensional aspect of the multidimensional body into the physical. And then you don't even have to worry at all. One of the masters who advised me in the early days of my worrying about these energies and attacks said, you're not going to need, and you don't need any protection at all. That's the level you can grow to. You don't need to worry at all. So these energies won't even be able to approach you. So that's how far the spiritual mastery can go. So what I wanted to actually, if it was okay with you, Alfred, I wanted to introduce to folks clearing affirmation that they can use for them to be their own. Where the funny thing is our auras are like sponges, and there's or energetic physics where if we simply refuse to absorb these external energies, they have to leave our field. So I go through a process. It's I release whatever, that's not my own. So I release all fear that's not my own. I release all anxiety that's not my own. I release all anger that's not my own. I release all stress that's not my own. And then you can go, of course, the biggest one is thought forms. I release all thought forms that are not my own. And so that those are the things that put the subtle pressure and dampen down the subtle energy bodies, which then affects the nervous system, i.e. the immune system, and then the actual virus can come in and get inside. So even if we had the virus, it starts on the aura level first. So you can, when you're sensitive enough, you can start to feel yourself getting sick from a week to 10 days before the symptoms actually go physical. So I use that every day. People, if they can use that daily in the morning or before bed, and it's a very effective way to keep neutral and to keep these external kind of the external energies that are pulling you down out of your field.
Oh, great! Yeah, if you could send me that after the show,
Sure, yeah.
Because then I could put it in the
text
in the article and perhaps in the video description here.
Sure.
And it's a very powerful affirmation. And frequency medicine is an extremely powerful form of medicine. I know that we have a frequency medicine device here that I use every day. And in fact, that's on the positive side. And my understanding is that the perpetrator side have developed frequencies for all of the illnesses, so that they can transmit illness at a distance by beaming that frequency at somebody's aura at a distance.
Right. Yes.
And so maintaining our high frequency at this time, because it probably turns out that the coronavirus is a frequency, right?
Yes.
And so ironically, it's all this fear, around the virus that is probably one mode of its promulgation.
Yes. Exactly.
Because fear lowers the vibration.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the sort of elegant, the energetic sophistication of it, where if we stay locked in that 3D social kind of mass media, the angle they're presenting it to us in, then we're going to get swept into the wave of where they're going
Yeah,
to direct it. Yeah,
yeah.
that's the exactly
I
well
I
stated.
should mention today is Monday, March 16th. We're going to get this video out today, and I will send it to you because tomorrow, and I think I can get you the time of it. Let me just bring down my other things here to get the exact time. We're holding in 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 conjunction with some scientists that we know in Russia,
Hmm.
in Moscow. We're holding a world transformation meditation
I saw
to
that. Yeah.
disperse the coronavirus, and it will be at 8 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Now that's going to be 11 p.m. Beijing time. I didn't put in Tokyo time. Do you know what that would be Tokyo time offhand? I don't have
I think it's
my
about
time app up. I could put
one
it
or
up.
2 hours difference from Beijing. So just it would be maybe 12. I said 11 a.m. Beijing.
No, it's 11 p.m. Beijing time on Tuesday, March 17th.
Okay, I think that's probably 12 midnight our time. It's a 1 or 2
Yeah,
hour
yeah.
difference.
So uh, if you want to distribute that to your network,
Sure. Yeah, I was just yeah, that's 1 hour difference. So that's
yeah,
midnight our
yeah,
time.
and
I would.
there's a link live on Facebook, and it'll be just to, and I'll put the link in the video this description here also. I know that it's just a passing thing, but that's
No, that's for
to keep the the uh, the frequency, the global frequency, and to elevate it
right.
at a global level. And so we'll have Tokyo, we'll have Russia, we'll have Canada. Those Russia and Canada are the two largest land masses.
Yeah,
Russia's
that's
the largest landmass on the planet. Canada's the second large mass. Tokyo has a very, very high, Japan has a very high frequency
yeah.
as a culture, and is very close to the extraterrestrials. I know I learned that in my trips to Japan, meeting with and talking with these Japanese people who were interfacing with the pilots of the extraterrestrial spaceships.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so anyway.
That's very timely because, right, I was mentioning before we started that just our last event before the big cancellations. Thank you. That sounds like a great idea. The event we did was with a Dr. Masakawa, this woman Izumi. She's a EMF radiation specialist, a scientist who was at the Russian Academy, so she would be very interested too. She created this device, which fits on the smartphone, and it's 6 here, and it's a radiation canceller. It's a neutralizer. So there,
Oh,
she has a sound healing school, and she's also very into. She was at the University of Michigan for dietary studies. So she's also a big vegetarian and animal rights activist. So yeah, it is
oh,
a
good.
full.
So we can get started tomorrow on our Russia, Japan, Canada, rest of the world frequency tune-up
Yeah,
of the planet to counteract this coronavirus false flag that is coming from the dark forces trying to work off of a Nostradamus quatrain. That's all that they're doing.
yeah. Yeah, same old playbook, same old program, different,
Yeah,
different day, different set of different paint job.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, but
Whoa.
I was yeah, that sounds great. I'm excited for the opportunity, and you know, it's amazing. Things are speeding up so much, and I want to. You mentioned you had a post a few weeks ago regarding the Google AI algorithm, and of course the AI element is here, and you know, the smartphone has become a listening device for those of us who are on the front lines here with this work, such as yourself and myself, and we've gone from, I can tell you right in real time here that in the last even 6 months we've gone from one word that might have gotten picked up and then all of a sudden come out of nowhere, and that's become common knowledge. Now it's like five a day on YouTube, you know. And then I mentioned in a comment on your post, Alfred, was that it's now even going conscious, where I had an experience in January. I was down in Kyushu there, and I suddenly I looked up from we were going over a bridge in a car, and I looked up and there was a pachinko parlor, like a little gambling parlor, and the word slot, you know, pachinko slot, hit my field of vision. And then the next morning I open up my YouTube and there's a video that says how pachinko machines work. I didn't say anything about the thing. It was a completely internal visual experience, and that registered into my smartphone, you know. And that's happened in the last few months a couple times. Nonverbal these keyword searches that come up out of nowhere.
Right, and that's all part of the transhumanist agenda, which is the robotization, attempted robotization of humanity. The ultimate goal being to take out Earth as a divine soul reincarnation venue,
Right.
and you know, and so that all human souls are substituted by AI souls, and we know that they've developed ever since what I think it was 1995, 96. They developed AI souls for
Right.
avatars, you know, for clones or
Yeah,
whatever.
this is the last gasp, though. I think definitely the information we're getting is you know, the guardian forces, so to speak. They're really, I mean, the reconnections of Gaia's energy. I know the stuff Laura often talks about, Laura Eisenhower, and of course my soul sister Lisa Renee in California. You know, sure, her, you know, the kind of mother energy has been grounded, reunited with Gaia. So the experience we've had coming through the last 6 to 7 years has been, it's really the Archon network is on its last gasp. So we may be seeing some really big negativity flying here out, but I always look at it as leaving the system. You know, it's a purge. So they may throw ninja stars and black magic at you on their way out, but know that they're being dragged out of the courtroom. You know, they're being arrested. They've got cuffs on. So that's the way I look at it.
That's a very good way to do it. Yeah, we used to say pieces of the base hit flying by. You know, they of the attempted base hit. Oh, there's a piece flying by.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's beautiful with the also the Aikido references. You know, never let it hit your, never let it never take a direct hit. You know.
Good, good.
All right. Well, this was amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, yeah. Please tell our audience how people can uh, follow your work, get in touch with you, support your work. I know at some point we're going to be able to resume contact with Japan, travel back and forth.
Yep.
Eventually, we'll be able to teleport to Japan. I know
Yes.
that that's
Yes.
in the cards.
Yes. That would be amazing.
So how can they be in touch with you and follow your work?
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, we have an English mail magazine. It's at our site is mostly in Japanese at the moment. It's www.jceti.org. And I also have another project we're doing called ET It's ET in spiritual. But a lot of the English information will be on YouTube as well. That's JCETI One. JCETI One is our YouTube channel. So yeah, with our 10th anniversary here, I'm working on an ebook to describe some of the experiences that I've had, and amazing contact, and we have a lot of the video footage we're finally going through and ready to release. We've been involved with also, you know, kind of grid work in places that were hit with natural disasters in the last few years, and some amazing mind-blowing contact in the islands of Okinawa, which is a super spiritual and shamanic type of place. Yeah, so that's all at jceti.org. There's an English, if you scroll down just a little bit, there's an English mail magazine block that people can sign up for, and either that or YouTube is the best way. I'm also on Facebook, but I think I'm at the limit right now of 5,000. So you can follow our JCETI page on Facebook and Instagram too. Yeah, well,
Great.
many years in the making, and we almost met at the Galactic Wisdom Conference about 3 or 4 years ago, Alfred. But I have the privilege to say that I've been one of your few guests who've actually been able to visit your actual home. So that was
yeah.
that was a
I remember
lovely,
you were here with John Kelly.
with John
I was
Kelly,
so
yeah.
lucky that he was able to network us.
Yes, many thanks to John. So yeah, he did his. We had him in a Japanese interview last year. So please come join us, and I'll translate for you.
Oh, good.
Talk about the.
I saw that. I got sent the link. My newest book, Emergence of the Omniverse, is now up in Amazon Japan.
Yeah.
So I will send you the Japanese link. It's in Japanese, so I'm afraid I'm not literate in Japanese, but perhaps you can share that with your.
I sure will.
With your networks out there.
I sure will. Congratulations on your new work. Yeah. That's taken into the macro level is the most important element, I think, for sure.
Well, this is great, and I look forward to your joining us soon with an update. I mean, Asia is emerging from this attempted hit, and can really, help Europe and North America emerge from the Maya, the illusion delusion.
Yes, yeah, it's chaos at the moment, but yeah, just we're going to get through it. I see a lot of positive change as well, and people. There are many people around me who are riding the wave and surfing it. So,
oh, good.
Yeah. All right. Many blessings, Alfred. Thank you, and we'll hope to see you soon.
Oh, totally. Good enough.
Cheers. Thanks to everyone.